Hey founders, this is the SaaS Boss Show, the podcast for SaaS founders in the growth stage who want to get unstuck, build high-performing teams, and get clarity about how to build a profitable startup. Every week, I interview SaaS consultants, coaches, and experts who work with dozens of startups just like yours and share their best strategies to overcome the daily challenges of growing a profitable SaaS. My name is Natalie Luneva, and I'm a growth and leadership coach to SaaS founders. And I'm also married to a SaaS founder. And I'm so pleased that you've joined us on this conversation. Today, it is my pleasure to speak to Sloane about how to prospect on LinkedIn to boost your sales pipeline. Rod is a speaker, author, a fellow podcaster, a B2B cold email coach, and a peanut butter producer. What? Rod, welcome to the show.
Thank you very much, Natalie. It's great to be here. And I'm not a peanut butter farmer. I just make peanut butter, but only for my own consumption. I don't do it in any sort of industrial or commercial way.
Rod, tell us, how did you get started working with SaaS founders?
I'm a traditional B2B enterprise software sales guy. I sold software that used to run on mainframes. If you don't know what your mainframe is, that's your father or your grandfather. But these are the big computers that banks and airlines, used to run, warehouse, big flashing lights, need air conditioning, and they need particular types of software. That's where I cut my teeth.
So you and I are on the same page as far as cold outreach, and that any founder, almost every founder should be doing cold outreach when they just launch their software or they're about to, or ideally even before you start coding your tool, you actually start reaching out to those people. Because when you don't have an existing audience, you need to also be the hunter. You need to go out and talk to people and reach out to this prospective audience. What are some of the pitfalls that you see founders make early on when they try to do cold outreach?
Okay, I think it's too many assumptions. It's very easy to fall in love with your solution. And really, the fact that you're in love with it, great, you should be. You should be more enthusiastic about it than anybody else. Let's say I was going to do a time management course for people who ran SaaS software companies, particularly startups. So I'm going to start doing time management courses for SaaS founders, SaaS startups. And I think this is great. This is what you need because you're stressed and you've got all these things going on. And I create this course and I work out what the costs are and I work out how to deliver it. Is it going to be online? That's the wrong thing to do. What I should do, of course, is approach a few SaaS startups and say, is time management important to you? And if I ran a course on it, was that something you'd consider attending, signing up for? And what are the key things that would need to be in a time management program that would make you want to spend some of your time, energy, and money in being involved with that? So basically, you need, in effect, to market and sell your product before you create it. So if I was doing that, I would work out how many people were interested before I even thought about how I created this time management or a program. Then what you need to do is go out to as many people and say, listen, I've got this piece of software, this technology. I think it's great. Who do you know that might be interested in it? Could you take a look at it and just give me some feedback on it? What you need is as much feedback as possible, because you may think you've created something, Rhapsody in Blue, but really what people want is not Rhapsody in Blue. They want Symphony in Red or something. So often where you think you're going, you might have to pivot and go somewhere else.
And I would add, as early as possible, not when you had a full set of features developed and now you're presenting it for the first time for someone who's going to be using that to comment on, but actually even before you spend 3 months building out that feature no one's going to be using, get that feedback early on. So why should founders do prospecting these days?
Apart from getting opportunities and getting revenue and getting more clients, which is all great stuff, and we'll talk about that. Here's the most important reason you should do prospecting. Are you ready for this, Natalie?
Yep.
Okay. It will test your go-to-market message more strongly, more robustly than anything else that you do. The reason you should take a look at my solution, the reason you should buy my product, the reason you should invest in it is because if that you can't answer that sentence is because the da-di-da-di-da, whatever that is, if that doesn't hit home, you've got to go back and think, okay, you've got to work on your messaging. Nothing tests your messaging more than prospecting, because if you don't get it right, you will be ignored.
Are there some benchmarks that we can measure against and say that, okay, we got those numbers? Are those good or bad numbers? Is it something that I should expect, or should I improve something?
I think in your early days, if you're a startup, what you want to get is just some people interested into it. So I wouldn't worry too much about the numbers at this stage. Numbers, that's much more of a sort of when you're starting to roll it out and you need a process and you need systems. And here's what I say to people. By the time you're just about sick to death of saying what you want to say, that's about time the marketplace will pay a bit of attention to you.
Let's make it more actionable. Tell us, how do you boost your pipeline? How do you get some leads?
If you want to close more, then you simply need to have more opportunities in your sales pipeline. Let's just say 1 in 10 of those opportunities that you feel at the top of the pipeline drop out the bottom as some form of deal. It's very hard then, if your conversion rate is 10%, to say, okay, we need to improve our conversion rate to 11% or 12% or 15%. And that's really, really hard to do. Companies struggle in trying to tone that dial up. What's easier than trying to improve that is to simply put more fuel, more opportunities in at the top. LinkedIn is I think it's the greatest opportunity we have to reaching out to people and getting your message out there in a proactive way. You've got to work out who your ideal prospect is. Right. And people talk to you about personas, and you get very wrapped up in personas. I tend to think in this term of ideal prospect. So I tend to work with SaaS companies that are reasonably well established, that employ between 10 and 100 people, where the founder is still the person who drives the sales. So that's my sort of sweet spot that I tend to work in. And the beauty of that is I can get to the decision maker quite quickly. If I was targeting SaaS companies that employ between, let's say, 200 and 500 people, the dynamics, the internal map of that business becomes much harder to navigate, much more complex. There'll be people involved with making decisions based around your solution who you will never get to meet. So the messaging is key. Speak in a way that your clients speak. So when somebody has your solution or wants to go ahead, the question you need to ask them, the really important question is, great, Natalie, it's great that you've invested in our solution. As a matter of interest, what made you go? Why did you do it? What do you like about it? What is it? How would you describe it? My opinion doesn't matter. Even your opinion as the founder doesn't matter, because the way your users, your customers talk about your product, it's the way you should talk about them. Not in some sort of marketing hyperbole speak. So be very careful of the hyperbole. Adjectives kill you. Don't use adjectives. Strip it down to its essence.
Let's make it more actionable. I'll give you an example. So for example, I have a tool that I just finished building. My target audience is marketing agencies. Let's say I have 30 days to get 10 sales. So the first step is to figure out your messaging to make sure that it resonates with the people that you're trying to target.
Yeah.
So then what's this plan here? I send out the request to connect first?
So when I'm running a campaign for people on LinkedIn, we don't send out one message. We don't send out two. We don't send out three. We send a minimum of 5. And often it's the 5th message that gets the most results. You have to create a series of messages. So one message may be about the financial impact. One message may be about the technical impact. One message might be about the organizational impact. One message might be the results that people are getting, etc. So please don't underestimate. You've got to reach out again and again and again. Most people view LinkedIn as a networking site. It's not a networking site to me. LinkedIn is the greatest B2B database that's ever been created. And the reason is it's in everybody's interest to keep it up to date. So the first thing you need to think about on LinkedIn is your profile. If I approach Natalie on LinkedIn cold and said, "Hi, Natalie, let's connect," she doesn't know who I am. The first thing she's going to do is look at my profile. And she's going to make a decision on my profile whether to connect with me or not. So if my profile was of somebody who said, "Hey, I'm Rod Sloane and I'm the world's greatest salesman. Last year I closed XYZ and I stayed at this company for 6 months." If it's all about you, your profile is very self-serving, that's not really going to engage with people very well. So your profile has to be customer serving rather than self-serving. So you've got to talk on your profile about the results that your client gets. Now, if you don't know the results that you get, you need to talk about the problems they have. Be careful with leading with your software. Lead with what you can do for people.
First, we need to have a messaging. Okay. Then second, we need to have our profile in order. Okay. Let's say that we have that. Now, are we ready to finally do the outreach?
The mistake most people do is to go into sales mode too quickly with their business. The best salespeople will ask existing customers, "Why did you buy this product? What's it done for you? And if we took it away from you today, what would you miss?" And just listen to what they say. And once you've got that, if you have a commonality, then you've got something. You've got your home messaging. The home messaging is done for you. Just because you ask that question.
How many people do we need to speak to approximately? And I know that there's going to be variance there, but how many people do we need to speak to on a daily basis, and how much time approximately we need to allocate to that to get to our goal?
If you want 10 people to buy from it, you need 100 people to show a level of interest. Going back to my analogy of a 10% conversion rate in your sales pipeline. To get 100 people to show interest, you probably might need to speak to 500 people who are going to say, "No, that's not for me." So that's the sort of metric that you need to think about doing. And you can't do that. To speak to 1,000 people as a founder is probably going to kill you. And that's why you can do this more effectively on LinkedIn. So you can speak to 1,000 people on LinkedIn quite simply. You can either do it via messaging. The best way is to reach out to people with messaging. I think you can achieve that. So this is what I do with my clients. I know, for example, the type of message that you need to send out to people to get them to connect with you. There's a bit of a formula with that. I know this gets a conversion rate of somewhere between 25 and 50% of people reaching out to people. They'll connect with you. And simply all you're trying to do there is follow the Robert Cialdini influence model, where you just give people a reason to connect with you. "Hi, Natalie, I'd like to connect with you because I'm looking to grow my number of level of contacts I have in Dallas." That's all you need to say to people, but just give them a reason. On average, I send out 50 cold requests per day, myself and my clients. On average, 25% of those, or 12, will connect. What they'll do, they might look at your profile first, or they'll say, "Yeah," but they'll connect. Now, you might think that's great. You might think that's poor. I've got one client who gets over 50% connection rates. That's great. That's just vanity. So what? They're connected with you. It doesn't mean anything. Then sometime later, you're going to reach out to these people and you're going to send them, what you call it, an outreach message. And that is the key challenge, to get that message right. So that message has to talk in their language. It has to be businesslike. It has to show results. But it also has to be very friendly, because these people don't know you at all at this stage. So the approach I would take there would be something along the lines of, "Hey, Natalie, great to connect. Some of our clients have got these sort of results. They've got, a 25% saving or 50% saving in their accounts receivable. If that's something you'd like to address, why don't we set up a quick phone call?" All right. So you're going to talk basically about some results your clients get, or you think that you should get, and then you're going to ask for a phone call. I know when I send those out to those 25% or 12 people that are connected, on average, 1 in 12 will say, "That's of interest, Natalie. Let's have a phone call." So let me just run through those metrics again. You send out 50 cold requests a day. Of those 50, on average, 25% or 12 will connect with you. And of those 12, when you send out a professional, business-like, but friendly outreach message, and I send it out the following day, 1 in 12 will connect with you. So my LinkedIn metrics are 50, 25, 1, or 50, 12, 1, what do you want to call it?
So basically, bottom line is out of 500 connections on average, we can expect 1 sale.
Yeah, you can think of it that way.
How long would it take on average to make 500, not connections, but messages, outreaches?
2 weeks. 2 weeks. The attraction of LinkedIn is you can do this process manually. There are some tools out there that you can do it, you can automate. I tend to go for the automation stage because I do it myself with a number of clients. You have to be careful in the automation tools that you use because LinkedIn doesn't like you using automation. So you have to be careful that you select something that's not too intrusive or too industrial in that sense. What do I mean by that? If you're going to send out 50 requests to connect a day, you don't want to send them all out at 7:30 in the morning. You want to pace those during the day. You want to send one out every sort of 8 minutes sort of thing.
I've seen that you were running or still running LinkedIn groups with thousands of members. And what I found is LinkedIn groups tend to be not as engaging as Facebook groups. Is it what you found as well? Because if I make a post in LinkedIn group or if I check what other people are posting, there's like 0 comments and maybe 1 to 2 likes.
Okay. So thank you for asking that question. I run 2 LinkedIn groups. I run one that's got about 25,000 members, and my major group is the Sales and Marketing Alignment Podcast that has about 160,000 members. You're right, Facebook groups are more interaction because people are much more personal there. So a Facebook group, I would have a Facebook group about making peanut butter, and people would engage very strongly. LinkedIn groups do have a value. What they don't have a value in it is if you go and post a link to something. So don't do that. The best tip I can give you for LinkedIn and groups, and I give this to all the members, is start a conversation with other group members. And the best way is by asking a question. What we all do on LinkedIn is say, look at me, look at my knowledge, look how I'm an expert. Stop trying to position yourself as an expert and try and position yourself as a student or a learner.
Rod, tell us more about where founders can learn more about you.
What you should do is go and look at my profile. My name is Rod Sloane, Rodsloane. There's only one Rod Sloane on LinkedIn. Look at me there, connect with me, ask me any questions. Happy to respond to you in that sense. I know by saying that, only a few of you will. So it's not a bad thing to throw out. Whatever I can do, I wish you every success in what you're doing. I wish you every success in getting customers. I run webinars on a regular basis. If you've connected with me, you'll see all those coming up. Join my groups if you think they're of value. If not, that's okay. And I wish you every success in this strange new normal.
Thank you so much, Rod. This was fun.
Thank you, Natalie.
That's it for this episode. Thank you so much for listening to the SaaS Boss Show. If you found this content interesting, I'd really appreciate it if you take just a second to leave a review on iTunes so that founders just like you can learn about this show. Don't forget to subscribe to the podcast, and I'll be back with another interview next week.